Commander Thelnara stood before the main viewing screen of the research vessel Hymn of Thought, her three-fingered hand gripping the rail with unusual force. The nebula before them glowed with colors that should not exist together. Angry reds, bleeding into sickly purples, all wrapped in streams of white that looked like open wounds in space itself. "Run the scan again," she said to her sensor officer. The young Kethran male, Drev, looked up from his station with concern etched across his scaled features. "Commander, I have run it 17 times. The result does not change. Then the equipment is faulty. I have checked the equipment twice." Thelnara's secondary eyelids flickered, a sign of deep frustration among her species. She turned to face the science station where Dr. Voss worked. The elderly xenobiologist had served on 12 deep space missions and had seen things that would make most beings question their understanding of the universe. But even he looked troubled. "Doctor, your assessment?" she asked. Voss adjusted his optical enhancers and studied the readings one more time. His long fingers danced across the holographic interface, pulling up data streams and comparing them to known baselines. Finally, he spoke in his characteristic slow, methodical manner. "The signal is artificial. There is no natural phenomenon that can produce such regular electromagnetic pulses. The pattern repeats every 4.3 seconds with mathematical precision." He paused, his jaw working as if chewing on words he did not want to say. "And it is coming from inside the breach." The bridge fell silent. Every member of the crew understood what that meant. The breach was the deadliest region of the Veiled. Tears Nebula, a space where exotic radiation stripped apart molecules like a child tearing paper. The Kethran had lost 3 probe ships trying to study it from safe distances. No biological life could survive there. Even their most advanced synthetic materials degraded into dust within hours of exposure. "That is impossible," Thelnara said flatly. "Agreed," Voss replied. "Yet the readings persist." She made a decision. "Deploy a probe swarm. Full hardening protocols. I want visual confirmation of whatever is producing that signal." "Commander," Drev said carefully, "we only have 12 hardened probes remaining. They are expensive and difficult to replace. I am aware of our inventory, Officer Drev. Deploy them." Within minutes, 12 sleek probes launched from the Hymn of Thought. They accelerated toward the nebula, their silver hulls reflecting the strange light. The crew watched in silence as the probes entered the outer layers of the breach. The first readings came back normal, then concerning, then alarming. "Probe 7 has gone dark," Drev announced. "Probe 4 showing critical system failures. Probe 11's hull integrity dropping rapidly. One by one the probes died. The radiation ate through their shielding like acid through cloth. By the time the survivors reached the target coordinates, only 5 remained functional, but those 5 sent back images that would change everything. The object appeared on the main screen. It was a vessel, but unlike any ship in the Galactic database. The hull was angular and crude, built with materials that seemed almost primitive by modern standards. Thick, ablative scoring covered every surface, showing decades of radiation damage. Entire sections had been rebuilt with mismatched plating. It looked like something that had died and been reassembled by someone who barely remembered what it was supposed to be. "Can you enhance the image?" Thelnara asked, leaning forward. Drev worked his controls. The image zoomed in, sharpened, enhanced. Details emerged. Hull markings barely visible through the damage. A designation in a language the computer took several seconds to translate. "UNSS Persistence," Drev read aloud. "Earth Fleet Deep Survey Division. Human," Voss said softly. The word hung in the air like smoke. Thelnara knew of humans. Everyone did. They had joined the Galactic Council only 30 years ago, emerging from their small corner of space with enthusiasm that bordered on naivete. They were physically weak compared to most species, their lifespan short, their technology generations behind the elder races. They had little to offer except trade goods and a puzzling willingness to attempt things that wiser beings avoided. "What is a human ship doing in the breach?" she wondered aloud. "More importantly," Voss said, standing and walking closer to the screen, "look at Sector 7 of the hull, the starboard lateral section." Thelnara looked. At first, she saw nothing unusual in the patchwork of damaged hull plating. Then she noticed it. a panel slowly sliding into place, sealing a gap that had not been there moments before. Automated damage control systems, still functioning after years of exposure to conditions that should have destroyed them. The ship is still operational, she breathed. Probe 3 is picking up power signatures, Drev reported, his voice rising with excitement. Minimal output, but definitely active. The reactor is running. Voss returned to his station and pulled up new data streams. His fingers moved faster now, urgency replacing his usual calm. Commander, I am detecting something else. It is faint, but the bioscanners are picking it up. Picking up what? Organic matter. Biological signatures. He looked up, his large eyes wider than usual. Life signs. That cannot be correct, Thelnara said, but her voice lacked conviction. She had already seen one impossible thing today. Why not two? I thought the same. I have checked the sensors 3 times. They are functioning correctly. Voss displayed the data on the main screen. The signatures are weak and irregular, consistent with beings under extreme stress, but they are there. Inside that ship, something is alive. The implications crashed over Thelnara like a wave. A human vessel stranded in the most lethal environment known to galactic science was somehow still functioning. And the crew, if there was a crew, had survived where no life should exist. How long? She asked. How long has that ship been here? Drev checked the records, cross-referencing the ship's identification with the Galactic Registry. According to Earth Fleet records, the UNSS Persistence was reported missing 47 years ago. Last known position was on the edge of this nebula. Mission parameters indicated a 6-month survey of the region. 47 years. 47 years in hell, and something aboard that ship still lived. Thelnara felt something she had not experienced. In her long career, genuine awe mixed with deep unease. The humans had a reputation for stubbornness, for pushing forward when wiser species would retreat. But this was beyond stubborn. This was impossible made real through sheer refusal to die. Open a council channel, she ordered. Priority Alpha. They need to know about this immediately. As Drev worked to establish the quantum link, Voss remained at his station, staring at the life sign readings as if they were a puzzle he could not solve. Commander, he said quietly, I have studied 47 different species over my career. I have seen adaptations that seem miraculous, survival strategies that defy logic. But this... He gestured at the screen showing the battered human ship. This should not be possible. The radiation levels would kill a Kethrin in minutes. The exotic particles would unravel our DNA in hours. Nothing we know of can survive in those conditions for 47 years. And yet, Thelnara said, they have. The quantum link established, and faces appeared on the screen. Council members from a dozen different species, disturbed from their duties by the priority call. Thelnara reported what they had found, showing them the images and sensor data. The reaction was immediate and divided. Some council members argued for leaving the ship alone. If the humans had entered the breach knowing the risks, their fate was their own responsibility. Others insisted on a rescue attempt, claiming moral obligation superseded danger. The debate grew heated, voices rising in a dozen different languages. Finally, Thelnara made the decision herself. We are going in, she announced, cutting through the arguments. We have a 12-minute window before our shields fail catastrophically. We will approach, assess the situation, and extract any survivors if possible. She cut the connection before anyone could overrule her. Drev, plot an approach vector. Best possible shielding configuration. Voss, prepare emergency medical facilities for human biology. We may only get one chance at this. As the hymn of thought changed course, angling toward the breach, Thelnara watched the damaged human ship grow larger on the screen. Somewhere inside that wreck, humans had survived for 47 years in conditions that would kill almost anything else in the known galaxy. She was about to find out how. The decision to enter the breach weighed on Thelnara's mind as the hymn of thought prepared for the approach. She stood in her ready room reviewing everything they knew about humans, which was surprisingly little despite 3 decades of contact. The species had appeared on the galactic stage with excitement and optimism that more experienced races found amusing. They were weak. Their bones broke easily, their skin offered almost no protection, and their internal organs could fail from simple impacts that would barely bruise a Kethran. They lived short lives, barely 100 years even with their best medicine. Their technology was functional but unremarkable, borrowed mostly from council patents they had purchased or licensed. What made them interesting, if anything, was their attitude. When the Varex Combine had tried to force unfavorable trade terms on Earth, expecting quick capitulation, the humans had simply refused. They sat at the negotiating table for 3 years, never yielding, never accepting bad deals, until the Varex gave up in frustration. When a mining colony on Mars suffered a catastrophic life support failure, human rescue teams had pushed through a radiation storm that killed 24 of them to save 80 colonists. They just kept coming, wave after wave, until everyone was out, stubborn, the other races called them, irrational, unable to accept defeat gracefully. Thelnara was beginning to think those words meant something different than she had believed. Dr. Voss entered her ready room without knocking, a privilege of his age and rank. "We have a problem," he said, pulling up a holographic display between them. "I have been analyzing the Persistence's position and the nebula's radiation patterns. That ship has been here for 47 years, in the breach. The deadliest region. I am aware of the timeline, Doctor. Then you understand what it means. The radiation exposure alone should have killed any crew within days. The exotic particles would have corrupted their DNA beyond any repair. The cosmic rays at those levels would have destroyed their nervous systems." He manipulated the display, showing cascading failure patterns. Even if they had the most advanced shielding available, which they do not, their technology is far behind ours, they should have died within a month. 2 at the absolute maximum. Your point? My point, Commander, is that we may be approaching a ghost ship animated by automated systems. Those life signs could be sensor echoes or corrupted data, or even some unknown form of radiation-based pseudo-life. We cannot assume there are still living humans aboard. Thelnara considered this. But if there are? Voss was quiet for a moment. Then we are dealing with something that should not exist, and I am not certain which possibility concerns me more. The intercom chimed. "Commander, to the bridge. We are approaching the outer boundary." They returned to the bridge to find the crew at their stations, tension visible in every posture. The view screen showed the breach growing larger, its twisted colors seeming to writhe like something alive and hungry. "Status," Thelnara commanded. "Shields at maximum. Hardening protocols active. All non-essential systems powered down to preserve energy." Drev's hands moved across his controls with practiced precision. Estimated survival time in the breach: 14 minutes before critical failures begin. 17 minutes before catastrophic shield collapse. Time to reach the human vessel: 8 minutes at current speed. 4 minutes for approach and assessment. That gives us 3 minutes for extraction before we must leave. 3 minutes. Not much time to save lives, if any remain to save. Take us in. Slow and steady. Monitor all systems. The hymn of thought crossed into the breach. Immediately, alarms began their warnings. The ship shuddered as exotic radiation hammered against the shields. On the engineering displays, Thelnara could see the energy drain accelerating as the shields worked to deflect forces that wanted to tear them apart at the molecular level. "Hull temperature rising," reported the engineering officer. "Shield efficiency dropping to 92%, 90%, 87%. Through the view screen, the persistence grew clearer. Details emerged that the probe images had not captured. The human ship was larger than Thelnara had expected, perhaps 300 meters long, built in a functional angular style that suggested military rather than civilian design. But what struck her most was the evidence of continuous repair and modification. Entire hull sections had been replaced with materials that did not match the original construction. Some panels looked like they had been harvested from other parts of the ship and welded into place. Other sections were patched with substances she did not recognize, possibly materials the crew had somehow synthesized or harvested from the nebula itself. The ship was a patchwork of desperate engineering, held together by ingenuity and determination. "I am reading active power systems," Drev said with obvious surprise. "Multiple sources. The main reactor is operating at 17% capacity. Secondary power grid shows signs of extensive rewiring. Life support is functioning, though readings suggest it is barely adequate." "Life support?" Thelnara moved closer to his station. Confirm those readings. Confirmed. Atmospheric processors are active. Temperature regulation is operational. Gravity generators are functional at point 6 standard, probably to conserve power. He looked up at her. Commander, someone has been maintaining these systems recently. A new signal appeared on the communications array, weak but unmistakable. An automated beacon, broadcasting on multiple frequencies. The computer translated it from Earth Standard English, UNSS Persistence. Mission status ongoing. Warning, extreme radiation hazard. Do not approach. Current operation, mapping Sector 778 Gamma for colonial survey purposes. Earth Fleet Deep Survey Division. Captain Maria Chen commanding. The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the message repeating on their screens. Mapping Sector 778 Gamma, Voss repeated slowly, for colonial survey purposes. They are still conducting their mission, Thelnara said, and even she could hear the disbelief in her own voice. After 47 years, in conditions that should kill them, they are still surveying. That is insane, Drev said. Why would they continue a survey mission when stranded with no hope of rescue? Because they are human, Voss replied, studying his biological readings with renewed intensity. And apparently humans finish what they start. Regardless of circumstances, the hymn of thought drew closer, shields straining, systems bleeding power to keep the crew alive. Thelnara could see the human ship's airlocks now, could make out the scoring patterns on the hull where radiation had carved away layers of metal over decades. One of the external sensor arrays was still rotating slowly, scanning the nebula, collecting data. We have company, Drev announced. The Persistence has detected us. I am reading active sensor sweeps. Their weapon systems are powering up. Weapons? Thelnara asked sharply. Primitive railguns and missile tubes. No energy weapons. But they are targeting us. Hail them. All frequencies. Tell them we are here to help. Drev worked quickly, broadcasting their peaceful intentions in every language the computer knew. For 30 seconds there was no response. Then a communication channel opened, audio only, heavily distorted by radiation interference. The voice that came through was human, female, roughened by age and radiation exposure, but steady and clear. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Maria Chen of the UNSS Persistence. Stand down your approach. This area is hazardous. We cannot guarantee your safety. Thelnara stepped forward. Captain Chen, this is Commander Thelnara of the Kethran research vessel Hymn of Thought, operating under Galactic Council authority. We have come to rescue you and your crew. There was a pause filled with the crackle of radiation static. Then to Thelnara's surprise, the human captain laughed. It was a tired sound but genuine. Rescue? Commander, we have been here for 47 years. If we needed rescuing, we would have called for help. Another pause. But I appreciate the gesture. Took you long enough. We have been scanning your ship for 3 days, wondering if you would work up the courage to come say hello. Thelnara exchanged glances with Voss. The human had been watching them. For 3 days, Captain Chen, your ship is heavily damaged. You are in the most lethal environment in known space. Your crew cannot possibly survive much longer. We have heard that before, Chen replied. We have been hearing it for 47 years. Funny thing about impossible situations, Commander. They are only impossible until someone does them anyway. I would like to meet face to face, Thelnara said, to discuss your situation. Your shields will not hold much longer, Commander. You have maybe 10 minutes before you need to leave. Are you certain you want to spend them docking with a wreck? I am certain. Another pause. Then, your funeral. Or maybe ours. Hard to tell anymore. Docking port 7 is functional. We will meet you there. Persistence out, the channel closed. Thelnara looked at her crew, seeing her own mixture of confusion and fascination reflected in their faces. You heard the captain, she said. Take us in. Docking port 7. And prepare medical teams. We may need them. As the Hymn of Thought maneuvered toward the human ship, Thelnara could not shake the feeling that she was about to discover something that would change her understanding of what was possible. The humans had survived for 47 years where nothing should survive. The docking process took 3 minutes of careful maneuvering. The Persistence's docking port was damaged, the mechanisms worn by decades of radiation exposure, but it still functioned. When the seals locked and the pressure equalized, Thelnara led a small team across the umbilical, herself, Dr. Voss, and 2 security officers carrying medical supplies. The moment she stepped through the airlock, Thelnara knew something was wrong with her expectations. She had anticipated a dark, dying ship, emergency lighting at best, systems barely functioning. Instead, the corridor was well lit, clean despite obvious age, and surprisingly warm. The walls showed the same patchwork construction as the exterior. Panels from different sections welded together. Some original hull plating reinforced with what looked like hand-fabricated brackets, but it was maintained. Someone had cared for this ship, kept it running, refused to let it fall into decay. Atmospheric readings are within acceptable range for human biology, Voss reported, scanning the air. Oxygen at 20%, nitrogen at 78%, carbon dioxide slightly elevated but not dangerous. Temperature is 19 degrees standard. Gravity at 0.6 as we detected. Basic life support but functional. They moved deeper into the ship, following the corridor toward what appeared to be the bridge section. Thelnara noticed details as they walked, handwritten labels on panels showing what each system controlled. Wear patterns on the deck plating where people had walked the same paths for decades. A small growing station built into an alcove, providing fresh vegetables under artificial lighting. Everything spoke of long habitation, of people who had not just survived but lived here. They reached the bridge and Thelnara stopped in the doorway. 6 humans stood or sat at various stations. They were old, their skin lined with age, their hair gray or white, their movements careful and deliberate. They wore uniforms that had been repaired so many times the original fabric was barely visible beneath patches and replacements. But their eyes were alert, tracking the visitors with intelligence and curiosity. The woman at the central command chair stood slowly, supporting herself with a cane that had clearly been fabricated from a piece of pipe. She was tall for a human, though age had bent her slightly. Her face was weathered, marked by radiation scarring that the ship's medical facilities had clearly struggled to heal, but her gaze was steady as she extended a hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Captain Maria Chen," she said. "Welcome aboard the Persistence. Sorry about the state of the place. We were not expecting company." Thelnara hesitantly reached out and clasped the human's hand, mindful of how fragile the woman appeared. Chen's grip was firm despite her age, her skin rough and warm. "Commander Thelnara, this is Dr. Voss, our xenobiologist and our security team. Captain, I must ask, how are you alive?" Chen smiled, the expression creating new lines in her weathered face. "That is a question we have asked ourselves many times. The answer keeps changing. Come, let me introduce you to my crew. They deserve recognition." She gestured to each person in turn. "Engineering Chief Yuki Tanaka. He has rebuilt our reactor 14 times with progressively fewer original parts. Navigator James Torres. He has been hand-calculating jump coordinates for future colonists for the last 20 years, even though we will never use them. Medical Officer Sarah Okonkwo. She has kept us alive through radiation poisoning, genetic damage, and about 100 conditions that should have killed us. Communications Officer David Park. He has maintained our sensor arrays and kept our mission data intact. Science Officer Lin Wei. She has documented every discovery we have made. And Weapons Officer Carlos Mendez. He has protected this ship from debris impacts and the occasional curious alien probe." Each human nodded or raised a hand in acknowledgement. Thelnara studied them, seeing the toll their survival had taken. They all bore signs of radiation damage, scarred skin, missing hair, movements that suggested chronic pain. But they were all working, attending to their stations, keeping their ship running. "We need to evacuate you immediately," Thelnara said. "Our medical facilities can treat your conditions. You need not stay here any longer." "Evacuate?" Chen looked genuinely puzzled. "Commander, our mission is not complete." "Your mission?" Voss spoke up, his voice tight with confusion. "Captain Chen, you were supposed to survey this region for 6 months? You have been here for 47 years. Surely the mission parameters are no longer relevant." Chen exchanged glances with her crew. Something passed between them. Understanding born of decades together. "Communication that needed no words, Dr. Voss," Chen said carefully. "We came here to determine if this region could support human colonization. To map the hazards, identify safe zones, locate resources. That mission has not changed just because our circumstances did." "But you are stranded," Thelnara protested. "You have no way to return home. No way to deliver your data." "We are transmitting continuously," Torres spoke up from his navigation station. His voice was rough, damaged by years of breathing recycled air. "Every piece of data we collect is broadcast on multiple frequencies. Someday, someone will receive it." "Maybe they already have." We do not need to deliver it personally for it to matter. Voss moved to one of the science stations where Lin Wei had pulled up a display of their survey data. His eyes widened as he scrolled through the information. This is extraordinary. You have mapped radiation patterns, identified stable zones, documented exotic particle behaviors. There are decades of detailed scientific observations here. 47 years' worth, Lin Wei said with quiet pride. We have surveyed 94% of the target region. 2 more sectors remain. Why? Thelnara asked, the question bursting out of her. Why continue? You must have known you were going to die here. Why not just try to survive to make your lives comfortable? Why keep working? Chen was quiet for a moment, leaning on her cane. Then she gestured to the view screen, where the breach's twisted colors filled the display. When we first got stranded, we had 24 crew members. We voted on what to do. 24 votes all the same. We would complete the mission. She paused, lost in memory. We knew we were dead. The jump drive was gone. No rescue was coming. We had maybe a few months before the radiation killed us. But we also knew something else. What? Voss asked softly. That we were still human. Still Earthfleet. Still people who had made promises. Chen's voice was firm now. We promised to survey this region, to gather data that might help future colonists, to do the job we were sent to do. Our circumstances did not change that promise. Death does not change a promise. But 47 years, Thelnara said. You should have died within months. How did you survive? Tanaka laughed from his engineering station, the sound more cough than humor. We improvised, rebuilt, adapted. When the shield started failing, I cannibalized half the ship's systems to reinforce them. When the reactor started dying, I rebuilt it with whatever I could find. When the hull breached, we patched it with materials we synthesized from nebula matter. Should not have worked. Did anyway. We adapted biologically too, Dr. Okonkwo added, pulling up medical records. The radiation should have killed us, but human biology is more resilient than anyone expected. We mutated, evolved. Our bodies learned to repair damage faster than it accumulated. Not fast enough to prevent aging, but fast enough to survive. I have documented every change. This data alone could revolutionize human medicine. Voss was studying the medical files with fascination and horror. You are living experiments in extreme adaptation. Your genetic code has been rewritten dozens of times. You should be dead from cancer, from organ failure, from neurological damage. Should be, Okonkwo agreed. Are not. Humans are stubborn that way. Thelnara felt her understanding of reality shifting. These humans had not just survived impossible conditions, they had thrived despite them, maintained their mission, continued to work toward a goal they would never personally benefit from. It made no logical sense. The cost-benefit analysis was absurd. They had sacrificed everything for data that might help people they would never meet, for a colony that did not exist yet. You have been conducting scientific surveys while dying, she said slowly, for people you will never know, for a future you will never see. That is what humans do, Commander, Chen replied. We plant trees whose shade we will never sit under. We build roads we will never walk. We sacrifice so that those who come after us have it better. That is not special. That is just being human. I have studied 47 species, Voss said, his voice filled with awe and something like fear. None would do this. The sacrifice is too great for such uncertain reward. Perhaps that is what makes us different, Torres said from his station. Or perhaps it makes us foolish. We have had 47 years to debate it and still have not decided. Alarms suddenly blared on both ships. Drev's voice came through Thelnara's communicator, urgent and stressed. Commander, we need to leave now. Shield integrity at 40% and dropping fast. We have maybe 4 minutes before catastrophic failure. Thelnara looked at Chen. Come with us, please. You have done enough. More than enough. Let us save you, Chen smiled sadly. Commander, we appreciate the offer, truly. But our mission is not complete. 94% is not 100%. We have 2 more sectors to map. Thelnara stood in the bridge of the Persistence, torn between 2 choices that both felt wrong. The alarms from her ship grew more insistent with each passing second. Her crew needed to leave, but the humans needed to be saved, whether they agreed or not. Captain Chen, she said firmly, I cannot in good conscience leave you here to die. My oath as a council officer requires me to preserve life when possible. And my oath as an Earthfleet captain requires me to complete my mission, Chen replied, equally firm. We appreciate your concern, Commander, but this is our choice to make. Dr. Voss had moved away from the science station and was now examining each of the human crew members with his medical scanner. "Commander," he said quietly, "I need to show you something." He pulled up the scan results on his portable display, positioning it so only Thelnara could see. The data made her breath catch. The humans were dying. Their cells were breaking down, their organs were failing, their neurological systems were degrading. They had months left at best. Weeks, more likely. "They know," Voss whispered. "Look at their medical files. They have been monitoring their own deterioration for years. They know exactly how long they have left." Thelnara looked at the 6 humans on the bridge, seeing them with new understanding. They were not in denial about their situation. They were not deluded or irrational. They knew they were dying and had chosen to spend their remaining time finishing their work. "Commander," Drev's voice crackled through the communicator, distorted by interference, shield integrity at 30%. "We must undock now." Thelnara made a decision. "Captain Chen, what if we help you finish your survey?" "You said you have 2 more sectors to map. How long would that take?" Chen's eyebrows rose. "Help us. Commander, your ship cannot survive in the breach for more than a few more minutes. But together our ships could cover ground faster. Our sensors are more advanced than yours. If we coordinate our efforts, could we complete the survey?" The humans exchanged glances again, that wordless communication passing between them. Torres pulled up a star chart, marking the remaining survey sectors. "With your sensor capabilities, maybe 4 days of work, if everything goes perfectly. But there is another problem." He expanded the chart, and Thelnara saw it. A massive energy signature building on the edge of the breach, growing larger with each hour. "Radiation storm," Torres explained. "The big one. We have been tracking it for 3 years. It will arrive in 36 hours and will consume this entire region. Nothing will survive it. Not you, not us, not our ships." "Then the survey cannot be completed," Thelnara said. "Actually," Linway spoke up from her science station, "the storm is the key. This nebula undergoes a massive transformation every 50 years. The storm reshapes the matter, creates new stable corridors, changes the radiation patterns. We are not just mapping the nebula as it is. We are documenting the transformation. After the storm passes, there will be a stable corridor through this region, perfect for colonization." "You have been waiting for this storm," Voss said slowly. "For years. For 3 years," Chen confirmed. "We knew it was coming. We knew we would not survive it, but we also knew it was the final piece of data we needed. The transformation will create safe passage for future human colonists. We just need to document it. You are planning to stay here," Thelnara said, "through a storm that will destroy everything. To collect data. To complete the mission," Chen corrected gently. The bridge of the Hymn of Thought was filled with urgent voices. Drev was reporting cascade failures across multiple systems. The engineering team was performing emergency power transfers. They had maybe 2 minutes before they had to undock or risk being trapped here permanently. Thelnara looked at the humans, these fragile, dying beings who refused to abandon their purpose even as their bodies failed them. She thought about her own species, about the careful calculations the Kethrin made before taking any risk, about how they valued survival above all else. She thought about the council races, each with their own priorities and survival strategies. The cautious Variks who never committed to uncertain ventures. The logical Mentari who only acted when success was guaranteed. The pragmatic Gen who measured every action by its immediate benefit. And then she thought about these 6 humans, who had survived 47 years in hell for a survey mission that would benefit people they would never meet. "Captain Chen," she said, her voice clear despite the alarms, "if you agree to evacuate after the survey is complete, I will help you finish it." Chen studied her carefully. "Commander, that storm will kill your ship. This is not your mission. You have no obligation here." "Perhaps not," Thelnara agreed, "but I have an opportunity. To witness something remarkable. To help complete something important. And to learn what it means to be human." She paused. "I think that is worth the risk." "Commander, no." Drev's voice was panicked now. "Shield integrity at 25%? We must leave immediately." Thelnara activated her communicator. "Drev, undock and retreat to minimum safe distance. Begin emergency repairs and shield reinforcement. We will remain here. Commander, you will die. That is a possibility I accept. Now follow your orders." The Hymn of Thought undocked with a series of mechanical clangs. Through the view screen, Thelnara watched her ship retreat, its shields flickering as they strained against the radiation. She had just sent them to safety while choosing to stay in the most dangerous place in known space. Dr. Voss stepped beside her, his medical scanner still in hand. You realize, Commander, that the Council will consider this either the bravest or most foolish decision of your career. Probably both, she agreed. Chen was smiling now, a genuine expression of respect and gratitude. Commander, you did not have to do that. Yes, Thelnara said. I did. Now show me these last two sectors. Let us figure out how to survey them before that storm arrives. The next hours were a blur of activity. Torres and the Hymn of Thought's navigation team worked together to plot optimal survey routes. Tanaka and the Kethrin engineers coordinated power management between both ships. Linway and Voss compared sensor data, finding ways to use the Persistence's jury-rigged equipment in combination with the Hymn of Thought's advanced scanners to gather more comprehensive readings. Thelnara watched the humans work. Amazed by their efficiency, despite their physical deterioration, they moved carefully but precisely, their decades of experience allowing them to compensate for failing bodies. When Tanaka had to take a break because radiation tremors made his hands shake too badly to work, Mendez seamlessly took over. When Okonkwo needed to administer medications to keep Park conscious, Torres covered both navigation and communications without being asked. They were a team in the truest sense, each person compensating for the other's weaknesses, each supporting the others without hesitation. 47 years together had forged them into something remarkable. The first sector is complete, Torres announced, 20 hours into the operation. 63% of the remaining survey is done. But the storm is growing faster than we anticipated. On the view screen, the energy signature had grown massive, a wall of destructive force that would sterilize this entire region. It would arrive in 16 hours now, not 36. Can we finish? Chen asked. Torres calculated silently, his aged fingers still quick on the controls. If we push the ships to maximum, if we take risks with the approach vectors, if nothing breaks. He looked up. Maybe, just maybe. Then we push, Chen said simply. Commander, will your ship hold together? Thelnara checked the status reports from the Hymn of Thought. Their shields were holding at 40% after repairs, but deteriorating again as they maintained position in the breach. The engineering team estimated 12 hours before critical failures began. We will hold, she said with more confidence than she felt. Then let us finish this, Chen said. All of us. Together. The two ships moved deeper into the breach, their crews working in perfect coordination. Human stubbornness and Kethrin precision, combining to achieve what neither could accomplish alone. And above them the storm grew larger, its arrival inevitable, its destruction assured. But for now there was only the mission. The survey that 6 humans had spent 47 years completing. The data that would save lives yet to be born, they would finish it. Or die trying. Knowing these humans, Thelnara thought probably both. The final 12 hours were a race against annihilation. The storm grew on the sensors like a living thing, hungry and inevitable. Both ships pushed deeper into the last survey sector, their crews working past exhaustion, past fear, past every reasonable limit. Thelnara had not slept. She moved between the bridge of the Hymn of Thought and the Persistence, coordinating efforts, making decisions, watching the clock count down. The humans worked steadily beside her, their movement slower now, their pain evident, but their focus never wavering. Sector 2 is 80% complete, Torres reported, his voice hoarse. But we have a problem. The final 20% is directly in the storm's path. The readings we need can only be taken from inside the leading edge. That will kill us, Drev said flatly over the comm link. He had been monitoring from the Hymn of Thought, growing increasingly distressed as the mission parameters pushed further into suicide. Commander, the radiation levels in that area will destroy our shields in minutes. Both ships will be lost. Chen looked at Thelnara, and something passed between them, understanding without words, respect earned through shared struggle. Commander, this is not your fight. You have already done more than anyone could ask. Take your ship and your crew to safety. We will collect the final data. In a ship that is barely holding together. Thelnara shook her head. Captain, your reactor is operating at 9% capacity. Your shields are failing. You will not survive long enough to collect anything. Probably not, Chen agreed with a tired smile. But we will try. Thelnara looked at the storm on the displays, at the impossible readings they needed, at the two ships that had somehow survived this long against all logic. She thought about her crew, about her duty to keep them safe, about the reasonable, cautious decision to retreat. Then she thought about 6 humans who had spent 47 years refusing to quit. "We do this together," she said. Or not at all. The plan was insane. The hymn of thought would use its more powerful shields to create a protective envelope, pushing as close to the storm as possible. The Persistence would shelter in their shield shadow, extending its sensors to gather the final readings. They would have 5 minutes, maybe less, before both ships were destroyed. "All non-essential crew to evacuation pods," Thelnara ordered. "If this fails, I want survivors who can tell the story." Begging the commander's pardon, Drev said over the comm, "But none of us are leaving. We have come this far. We will see it through." Thelnara felt something warm in her chest, pride in her crew, gratitude for their loyalty, fear for their lives. Acknowledged. "All hands to stations. Prepare for final approach." The two ships moved toward the storm in close formation, the hymn of thought leading, the Persistence following in its wake. The radiation levels climbed rapidly, and alarms began their chorus of warnings. Shield integrity dropped 90%, 80, 70. "Storm edge in 2 minutes," Torres called out, his hands steady on the controls despite the tremors that racked his body. "Sensors ready," Linway reported. "All data collection systems active. We will get one pass. Make it count. 60% shield strength. 50. The hymn of thought shuddered as exotic particles hammered against its defenses. Behind them, the Persistence held position, its ancient hull groaning but intact. 1 minute, Torres said. 40% shields. 30. Systems began failing across both ships. The lights flickered. Gravity generators strained. The temperature spiked as thermal regulators struggled to compensate. "We are in position," Thelnara announced. "Begin data collection." The Persistence's sensors reached into the storm, gathering readings that had never been taken before. The storm was transforming the nebula in real time, its exotic radiation reshaping matter at the molecular level, creating new stable elements, carving corridors through space that would remain after it passed. "Getting it," Linway said, her voice tight with concentration. 20 seconds more. Just 20 seconds. 20% shields, 15. The hymn of thought's hull began to heat, metal expanding, seams straining. 10 seconds. Linway counted down. 10% shields. Both ships shook violently. Thelnara gripped her command chair, feeling the vessel coming apart around her. 5 seconds, 5%. Warning klaxons screamed. Emergency power systems activated. The bridge lights failed, replaced by emergency lighting that cast everything in red. "Got it," Linway shouted. "All data collected. We are complete. Retreat," Thelnara ordered. "Both ships, maximum power, get us out of here." The ships turned, fighting against the storm's pull, engines straining. The hymn of thought's shields failed completely, but they were already moving away, the gap between them and destruction growing. The Persistence followed, its reactor pushed beyond all safe limits, giving everything it had left. They cleared the storm's edge with seconds to spare. Both ships were battered, barely functional but alive, and the data was complete. 47 years of work, finished in a final desperate push into hell itself. "We did it," Chen said softly, almost in disbelief. "The mission is complete." Tanaka was already working on the engineering station, though his hands could barely hold the tools. "Uploading everything to the central transmitter. Broadcasting on all frequencies. The data will survive even if we do not." "Captain," Thelnara said, "now will you evacuate?" Chen looked at her crew, these people who had been her family for nearly 5 decades. She looked at her ship, the Persistence, which had kept them alive through impossible odds. Then she nodded. "Yes, Commander. The mission is complete. We can go home now." The evacuation took an hour. Each human said goodbye to their ship, touching bulkheads they had repaired, systems they had rebuilt, spaces where lost crew members had once worked. It was not just a vessel they were leaving. It was their home, their purpose, their life's work. When the last human stepped onto the hymn of thought, Tanaka turned back to look at the Persistence one more time. "She was a good ship," he said quietly. "She deserved better than this." She got exactly what she was built for, Chen replied. A completed mission. There is no greater honor for a vessel. With all humans aboard, Thelnara gave the order to retreat from the breach. But before they left, Tanaka requested one final action. He activated a program he had written years ago, a sequence that would keep the Persistence's transmitter broadcasting, repeating their data forever, or until the ship finally died. As both ships moved away, the storm consumed the Persistence. Its hull heated to incandescence, its systems failed one by one, its structure began to break apart. But through it all, its signal continued broadcasting, a beacon of human determination that would echo through the nebula for anyone who came after. 3 months later, Thelnara stood before the Galactic Council in the Great Chamber, where representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss matters of importance. The chamber was silent as she played the recordings from the Persistence, showed the data the humans had collected, explained what 6 people had accomplished over 47 years. When she finished, the silence stretched for long moments. Finally, Ambassador Cathar spoke, his voice skeptical. Commander Thelnara, you risked your ship, your crew, and your career for a survey mission, for data about a region no one wants to colonize. What possible justification can you offer for such recklessness? Thelnara met his gaze steadily. Respectfully, Ambassador, you are wrong. Humanity wants to colonize that region. And after seeing what 6 humans accomplished in 47 years, with failing equipment, dying bodies, and no hope of rescue, accomplishing their mission simply because they said they would, I suggest we pay very close attention. When humans say they are going to do something, she turned to address the full council. These 6 people survived where nothing should survive. They worked when anyone else would have given up. They finished a mission that should have been abandoned decades ago, not for glory, not for reward, but because they made a promise, because they believed their sacrifice might help people they would never meet. That is irrational, Cathar insisted. The cost-benefit analysis is absurd. Perhaps, Thelnara agreed. But I have learned that humans do not measure worth the way we do. They plant trees whose shade they will never enjoy. They build roads they will never walk. They sacrifice so that those who come after them have something better. That is not weakness. That is terrifying strength. The council erupted in debate, voices rising in a dozen languages. Some called it foolishness. Others called it courage. But all of them were talking about humanity now, seeing them differently, recognizing something in these strange, weak, short-lived beings that demanded respect. In a medical facility orbiting a nearby station, Captain Maria Chen sat in a comfortable bed, her crew in beds around her. They were receiving treatment for decades of radiation damage, healing slowly, regaining strength. The doctors said they might live another 10 years with proper care. Maybe 15 if they were lucky. Dr. Okonkwo was reading a datapad, scrolling through messages from Earth. It is confirmed, she said. Earth Fleet is launching a colonial expedition to the Veiled Tears Nebula. They are calling it the Persistence Initiative. They are using our data? Torres asked, every bit of it. They say the corridor we mapped will be perfect for settlement. First colonists leave in 6 months.